Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is episode 116, our concepts edition. I'm Devin Bedoni of Like and Precision.
And I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing and Arda Cards. And this week's quote, an entrepreneur falls off of a cliff and luckily manages to grab a vine. He's 1,000 feet up and 1,000 feet from the top. And they sit there and they start to pray. Yeah, is anybody up there? And a booming voice says, "Do you believe?" And he says, "Yes." "Then let go." And he sits there and thinks, "Is anyone else up there?" It's I started rereading Traction. So it's from Gino Wickman in his book Traction.
Yeah.
And sort of making the point that you have to stop doing the things you're doing currently if you want to improve, if you want to make changes in your business. And a lot of people say they want to make changes, but then when it comes time to stop doing things the way they've been doing them, there's an inability to let go. So kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, also like the other part of that little anecdote is there's very high risk if you do let go.
Yeah.
There's potential reward, but
right.
You might just fall.
And actually, I guess thinking about it that way, I think that's sort of Toyota's answer to that is PDCA, right? Because maybe is there a way
very,
where
very short amounts at a time?
Well, can you like lower yourself, or
Yeah.
can you? Yeah, I guess if you're 1,000 feet up, you're probably going to run out of energy. But I think, yeah, maybe that premise is like that is a very risky maneuver as a business, and actually probably not a good idea to let go.
Yeah,
it's probably better to like rethink how you can let go.
Yeah, find the end of the vine.
Yeah,
first.
or like break it out into little things to let go of, or something. Yeah. Anyhow, speaking of PDCA, I started listening to. I spoke to an interesting guy who worked at Google, running teams there, and we sort of connected over. Eitan made an intro, and we connected over Lean, and just enjoyed. It's hard to find people who will just
like you do
go on and on about how interesting the different aspects are.
Nearly everyone I talked to about it was just an immediate connection.
Yeah, most people are like, okay, I've heard enough, thank you.
I've only been saying 3 words.
So he was very interested in the fact that I'm applying it sort of as it was created, whereas for him it's sort of like interesting history, because like Kanban and work in process and all that stuff is in his world is all software related, which is actually a world that's like picked it up way more successfully than manufacturing, it seems like. Like Scrum and Lean and all these terms, most people you talk to, if they've heard of it, have heard of it in the context of software.
Interesting.
Production, creating software products.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he turned me on to Deming, which I've heard over and over in passing, and like I've read his like 14 Principles of Management, and there's a bunch of stuff by Deming, but kind of didn't dive in. So I've started reading a couple books about him and by him. One fun little tidbit is PDCA is Plan, Do, Check, Act, and he didn't like that check. At the beginning of his life, he used that. And then toward the end of his life, he started saying PDSA, where S was survey, I believe. And so it's kind of, he didn't like that check sounded binary. It's like a go, no go.
Yeah.
Instead of kind of like, assess what is happening. Which I thought was just an interesting little tidbit. So it's not like, is it a go or is it not? It's kind of like, okay, let's take a full view of where we landed and what we've learned before taking the next step.
Which makes sense, because it's very rare that it's like 100% success.
Yeah.
It's like some aspects of whatever you were trying are successful or not, and some, likely many, are not.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Anyway, so he's sort of credited with rebuilding Japan's economy after World War II. Like,
or
that one guy
being largely instrumental.
I mean, a lot of people definitely. But, and I think we've talked about this before, but I believe he studied under the Gebrechts in the US and then brought a lot of these principles to, I could be wrong about that, but brought a lot of the principles to Japan, and then Japan really embraced them.
Yeah.
And now we're sort of trying to bring them back from Japan.
Right. Was he an American?
Yeah.
Or an English person?
Mm-hmm.
Or?
American.
What was the motivation?
I have no idea. He didn't take any money for it. He didn't take any money for lecturing over there. He gave like years of lectures. Didn't ever accept money. Didn't accept money for the sales of his books over there. Like, just seemed to really like Japan or something.
Interesting.
Or the Japanese people. So anyway, very interesting reading. I think it feels, I haven't quite wrapped my head around how he thinks, but it seems sort of more holistic. Like TPS, Toyota Production System, is very focused on production.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, obviously building people is central to it, but it's all very much related to how do we manufacture and deliver value.
Yeah.
I think, right? And like developing people is core to having the people there to do the thing, and continuous learning and scientific thinking, and like all those parts, I think, in that book are very related to production, I guess.
Yeah, like they really put a lot of emphasis on it, but it's never like the focal point.
Right. I mean, I guess they would say to improve the community or the world. Right. That's a big focus for them.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, it feels more in that camp, more on that end of the spectrum. His thinking is sort of like more about transforming the world and, really big systems thinking. So he concerned himself from everything from like big government decisions down to, helping factories improve quality. So he consulted with governments and
I'm reading through the 14 points right now. Have you read them?
Yeah,
they're cool. Should I read them out loud?
Yeah, let's do it.
Long. 1, create constancy of purpose toward, or this is somebody's writing of them. I don't know if they're going to match what you've read. Create constancy of purpose toward improvement of product and service with the aim to become competitive and to stay in business and to provide jobs. 2, adopt the new philosophy. We are in a new economic age. Western management must awaken to the challenge, must learn their responsibilities, and take on leadership for change. 3, cease dependence on inspection to achieve quality. Eliminate the need for inspection on a mass basis by building quality into the product in the first place. 4, end the practice of awarding business on the basis of price tag. Instead, minimize total cost. Move toward a single supplier for any one item on a long-term relationship of loyalty and trust. 5, improve constantly and forever the system of production and service to improve quality and productivity and thus constantly decrease costs. 6, institute training on the job. 7, institute leadership. The aim of supervision should be to help people and machines and gadgets do a better job. Supervision of management is in need of overhaul, as well as supervision of production workers. 8, drive out fear so that everyone may work effectively for the company. 9, break down barriers between departments. People in research, design, sales, and production must work as a team to foresee problems of production and in use that may be encountered with the product or service. 10, eliminate slogans, exhortations, and targets for the workforce asking for zero defects and new levels of productivity. Such exhortations only create adversarial relationships, as the bulk of the causes of low quality and low productivity belong to the system and thus lie beyond the power of the workforce. 11, eliminate work standards quotas on the factory floor. Substitute leadership. 11B, eliminate management by objective. Eliminate management by numbers, numerical goals, and substitute leadership. 12A, remove barriers that rob the hourly worker of his right to pride of workmanship. The responsibility of supervisors must be changed from sheer numbers to quality. 12B, remove barriers that rob people in management and in engineering of their right to pride of workmanship. This means, inter alia, abolishment of the annual or merit rating and of management by objective. 13, institute a vigorous program of education and self-improvement. 14, put everybody in the company to work to accomplish the transformation. The transformation is everybody's job. Does that match what you've read in the past?
Yeah.
It's cool. I've never come across it before.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting because I feel like in a lot of the books they sort of mention Deming at some point.
Yeah.
So anyway,
there's a lot of stuff here that is like I enjoy because it's counter to a lot of U.S. kind of corporate talk.
Yeah, and like interestingly, so I'm just a couple chapters into the book he wrote. I read another book which I don't know if I'd recommend about him, but I think what's interesting, I mean, it's really a big focus on systems thinking, a big focus, and a lot of these, like, sort of, I think, suggest his realization that, like, you know, KPIs and stuff like that are really easy.
Yeah.
Like he said, to substitute for leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like
right.
It is easy to say, like, make this many today.
Yeah.
And then you either did or you didn't.
Yeah. There's zero skin off of someone's back.
Yeah. And like very easy, very low time, effort. I mean, I think cost accounting is the same deal. And a lot of these, I think, reflect the fact that, you know, I guess Eliyahu Goldratt, every metric should be in complete alignment with the positive outcomes of the organization. I think if you listen to, or if you read Eliyahu Goldratt's material, you see how much effort it takes to get really good metrics. And that's just to come up with the metric. That's not to then track it, right? Like his big thing is inventory dollar days or throughput dollar days. And in theory, you understand why it's in complete alignment, though it takes him pages and pages to get there, right? And like, they're really good. And like, it's impressive that he figured out a good metric.
Right.
But it's not that practical. And I think Deming, I don't know, you know, for better or for worse, you know, Deming, I'm not sure they overlapped, although they probably did. I think they did.
Yeah. What was, he
died in his 90s. I forget what year.
And Goldratt was writing and active in the 70s, 80s.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
We could check. We're making this up. Anyway, so I think for most people, it's not going to be that useful. Like inventory dollar days isn't super useful. I think, like, to me, we're not tracking inventory dollar days, though we're getting close with ARDA to be able to kind of do it.
Yeah.
Like approximate it pretty well without added effort. But anyway, kind of, very, very interesting just to hear the focus on true positive objectives, kind of, rather than like, hey, you, like, create fewer rejects. And it's like, okay, well, to do that, I'm probably going to, I don't know, decrease throughput or whatever, like, I don't know, make stuff not available because we're so focused on not changing what we're producing at any one time. Like, it's just, anyway. Very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting to, like, it's very easy to get caught up in, like, just being like, we'll make more stuff, we'll make more money. And that's can be so far from the truth.
Yeah, there is some of that.
Yeah, I just looked it up. They're about 50 years apart in birth date, about 20 years apart in death. So they must have
they overlapped
quite a bit.
Anyway,
like it.
Fun stuff. Really hard to implement, I have to say. I mean, like, growing a business, it's so hard to, they allude to this, but just like businesses that are doing well tend to do worse at this stuff, which in the long run is more impactful. So like a lot of the success stories with like a lean transformation in Japan are companies that were near bankruptcy. And then they're like, okay, well, this isn't working.
Right. Let's
try something completely different. And then over time, they are incredibly successul because of all the reasons that this is worthwhile.
Well, and like the system as a whole, right? Evolving out of a more or less collapsed economy.
Yeah. Yeah. So like they had to do something. I just watched Moneyball.
Oh, yeah.
And that too, I mean, it transformed how baseball is played and recruited and like the whole field. But it came out of a company, out of a team that was doing poorly, didn't have money. Because they were doing poorly, they don't have money. And so like they were desperate for a different way, not just like, let's do the same things and hope for a different outcome. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting because I hope like things have been going pretty well for Austere. And so, but I hope to be able to kind of, you know, keep the focus and keep time going into really significant improvement efforts and not just, you know, new fixtures and new tools, but like new systems, new approaches to management, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Very hard.
Quite.
Right? Like we hope to have a lot of work and then you get a lot of work and you're super busy and don't have time to navel gaze or whatever it is
that we're doing over here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Our bi-weekly navel gazing. You have a good point in here that I feel like bears a lot of discussion, the time to value concept.
Yeah. So this is something we've been pondering with Arda. And then the second it popped into my head, it just feels like a really powerful and driving kind of, I don't know what, something.
Principle?
Yeah. It's like, how long does it take of from the time you start putting effort into a project to the time where it benefits the company? And when that time to value gets too long, it can bury a business. And I think, so somewhere we did this really poorly, I think, in retrospect, is like our painting robot. Mm-hmm. I think I got very excited about getting away from me doing the painting. And so I didn't think hard about like, how much time and money is it going to be before it is delivering good products? Instead, I was like, okay, this is the future. Let's go. Right. And we're still not painting with the robot. We did succeed in painting some parts successfully, but there's a difference between like, yeah, we did one to like, okay, this is how we're doing all of our pieces.
I'm experiencing that with Anodize pretty hard.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think I've been thinking a lot about how to break projects down so that each piece delivers true value to the company, not just in terms of validating the general premise or de-risking the premise, but just literally like for you, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, maybe the goal of our anodizing for the first bit is not to do color or it's not to do large batches. It's just to do these like super small batches.
Yeah.
Right. Because then we can actually derive value from this really small ano line. Maybe that's not a good
I think
example.
That's a good distinction that you're making, because like we've talked about this quite a lot over time of, you know, breaking your projects down, making sure that you can get them to completion so you're getting value out of them.
Yeah.
But I think we have also talked quite a bit about just de-risking and testing.
Yeah.
And this is a distinction.
This is another layer on top of that I think I haven't thought about as clearly. So including hiring, I've changed my thinking a little bit. So like hiring someone in production is really kind of quite a bit of time to value if they're not trained. Because what is the value to the company? The value to the company is, it's sort of increased throughput, but not if those things aren't selling. And so the time to, like, we added someone to production, and so suddenly our payroll jumped because we're a small company. So it's a noticeable jump in payroll.
Wait, you did?
I mean, a while ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a year ago. I wish.
This is big news.
Sort of. Actually, we do have another person in there just today, but yeah. And so so you hire someone, so suddenly your throughput is increased significantly on production, but that doesn't mean your sales double overnight, right? Like let's say you have one person on the line, then you have two, your sales don't double overnight.
Yeah. And
so now the time to value is pretty long. And so it's hard to, as a small business, pull that off. Whereas now I think our next hire is going to be someone in sales. In fact, if you know anyone in, sales and marketing and like social media stuff, I think there's levers we can pull there that will drive revenue. Yeah. And so if I can just hand off the reins to someone, our time to value with that hire is very low. It's like, here it is, assuming we do a good job with the hiring process, right?
Right.
You can shoot really good photos that could get good engagement. We know how engagement converts to dollars on our sales side.
Yeah. I think it's good to keep in perspective, which I'm sure you're doing, that like that doesn't work, right? If you don't have a production system to back it up, right? Like you can't have this be your sole guiding metric.
I know, and I think that's the flip side, as we sort of talked about before the podcast, is if there's some companies who won't invest in things that have a time horizon that's too long. Mm-hmm. And I think that covers a lot of people who sort of take a passing interest in continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. Like for us, the first 3 to 6 months were worse than useless. I mean, for sure, right? Like, and I think for me more than for you, because I went into it a little bit more just like, I'm doing this.
Gonna just try it out and make it work.
And my business was so small at the time that it was like, I think it was just me, or maybe I had a couple part-time people, I forget. But
there was quite a bit before you were even selling stuff too, right?
No, I think I started like really the lean stuff after we were live.
Oh, okay.
And selling.
And you were like, oh my God, what am I doing?
I think so. Yeah. Sort of the panic set in of like, okay, people want this. Now I just need to make it over and over and over. And then the way it came, the other place where we're seeing it is on the flip side, selling ARDA to companies. It's clear that we need to clear this hurdle of time to value. Like people aren't expressly saying this, mm-hmm. but when we go in and like, you're using ARDA, mm-hmm. there's only so much time before it's like, okay, we're not using it. Right? Like, right. It's sort of like how much time do I need to put into this system before it is making my life as a business owner way easier? Mm-hmm. And I think like that threshold, maybe on a minute by minute basis, like it really is, right? It's like I can place this order the way I used to do it, which takes 25 minutes to write out this email. Mm-hmm. I know exactly how to do it. I've done it 100 times. Or I could spend an hour in ARDA. Uh-huh. And then from here on out, each order will take me 3 minutes. Yeah. It's hard to make the decision to invest that hour, depending that additional 35 minutes. Yeah. And so anyway, that's sort of where this concept sort of crystallized for me, is because I'm looking at it, I'm like, I know it is worthwhile. Right. I know it saves people a ton of time once they're up the hump. Right. Of like getting parts in the system, getting cards printed. Like once it's there, it's awesome. But getting there isn't zero work. It's marginally more than the work they're putting in on a day-to-day basis, but there's certainty in what they're doing currently versus like, the devil we know kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's an interesting lens, I think, to kind of look at.
Yeah. I think the other thing which you just brushed on was matching sort of like the investment to the company size. Yeah. Right. Like my company cannot, as you mentioned, invest everybody's time for a week into a development project, right? Like that could sink the business. Yeah. Whereas a larger company can definitely do that because it's a smaller percentage of the whole. And so keeping your improvements, your investments in line, which everybody has like a gut sense of this.
I think that's how most people are doing it. It's just a gut feel.
But kind of stepping back slightly and adding this layer on top of the monetary cost and all that.
Yeah, and it's very related to cash flow management. It's basically cash flow management. Uh-huh. But
it's time. And ROI kind of overlaid. Yeah.
Anyway, that's that. I wanted to give an update on our whipboard. I feel like I'm kind of hogging the mic here, so.
That's fine. My brain is scrambled from attempting to run a business. Nothing to say.
So update on the whipboard. It's gotten better and better. Yeah. We added a lane recently after talking to Andrew Henry at Henry Holsters. Thanks for the call and the feedback.
Have you posted a picture of it, by the way?
I haven't, because it's embarrassingly crude, but I really should, because that's sort of the point of this podcast.
Yeah, you should. I mean, also, I just want to see it.
Oh, yeah. So I will grit my teeth and do that. But I added a lane this week, which is SOPs. So we're now going to have another lane that can have projects in it, which are SOPs we're developing.
Oh,
Because I want to put a little bit more emphasis on developing SOPs for the business.
yeah. So rough breakdown again. You have lanes that run across the board.
We have them vertically right now
Sure.
for no good reason.
Okay.
I have a good reason, but it's not a good reason. So we have these vertical lanes, and then within each lane, and this is all going to change a lot, I suspect, but vertical lanes. Okay, firstly, the reason we struggled with it for like a year, I've implemented a whip board probably a year plus ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
I think we've done 2 or 3 different versions,
Yeah.
and they all failed.
Yeah, it's like you'd use them for like a week and then they get overly crowded or something and then they kind of fall off. That's been my experience. And so the big difference with this one that I've felt is anytime it feels like there's 2 projects trying to swim in the same lane that are not alike, that are different functions of the business, I give them their own lane. And I suspect I might take that too far, but I think in the past I'm like, okay, every person is going to work on one thing. And it's like evidently not the case, because you're spending an hour on improvements, let's say.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the rest of your day? Right? All sorts of things. With those things, and this gets back to the time to value thing, the ROI on each minute of company time gets lower and lower the more things you have in parallel, because they only derive value, like they only drive value to the business when they're across the line.
Right.
It's like you can't ship someone half a part or halfway finished. And so when it's like, oh, I was going to finish your part, but instead I had to do more quoting and more programming of parts, that's very real. And that is how the business works, even if it's worse. And I think what I'm trying to do is use the whip board to reflect the bottlenecks in the business while also minimizing the whip in each swim lane. So, and the other piece is I think it's important for a business to be doing all of its core functions a little bit all the time, instead of like spikes on each different core function. We've talked about this a lot, like the relationship between sales and like production, right? You go hard on sales, you get a lot of work, then you go hard on production, leaving sales by the wayside. That's way worse for the whole system in every way than doing like the proper balance, whatever the proper balance is for your business, right? Like we do an hour of sales every day, and then we do an hour of improvements and 6 hours of production, let's say, for one person.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's kind of the general premise. And then what we did is we did a sort of a template time blocking for each employee. And so we have 1 hour of, and I should actually break this out into half an hour of 3Sing.
In the lane?
No, so separately on the same board, just to like hold that in our head of like, here is the ratio that you, Devin, at Lycan, here's the ratio of things you should do throughout your day. Like you should be spending half an hour on 3Sing, half an hour on improvements. You should be spending 2 hours on quoting, 2 hours on programming, and then whatever's left, 2 hours on whatever else we do in our day. Podcasting,
running around with your hair on fire.
Yeah, extinguishing your hair. And I think, and that's sort of your prototypical day, and then you have a swim lane that represents each one of those blocks to some extent. And this is and so my thought is you have to develop that program, or that sort of like breakdown of how you spend your time, and then the projects you're spending it on, stay laser focused ideally on those, and not just introduce more and more work into the system without finishing stuff. And then if you're unhappy with the results, you have to play with the knobs of that. So like either you're not spending enough time on sales because there isn't consistent work, or you're not spending enough time on and like, I don't know, like PID loops.
So you just add more hours to your day, right?
I mean, yeah, that's my takeaway. It's like you have to be working.
No. Interesting. Yeah, I've been sort of thinking that the reason our whip boards have failed, and it sounds like you're starting to tackle this, is because they're not actively integrated into normal daily activities.
Exactly. They don't reflect what you're actually doing.
Yeah. So they just become this extra thing. And it's like, I think very rare that a person feels like they have enough free availability to go check that board and be like, what am I going to work on? Right? Because it's not like, even myself, if I get through whatever task list I have, usually I'm like, okay, what else is critical? Not like I'm going to go peruse the
right. But I think
whipboard.
The failure mode there that I've seen for our business is that you forget about the things that are important but not urgent.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so
I think what you're doing there is important in integrating it into daily activity. I've been thinking about sort of trying to integrate it into a Kamichibai board, because I'm more and more, we still have not made it, but more and more thinking that that's going to be really helpful, in part just for minimizing management. Yeah. Where like it can sort of become a basic template for your day.
Yeah.
It's, like,
it's sort of time blocking in a funny way.
Yeah. Each employee has or each position has daily activities that need to get done every day, and just check that board. And then that could become kind of like an everything.
Yeah. And I think a cool thing about this concept is it means that you should end up with swim lanes that represent all the core functions of the business. And even in talking about this currently, I'm realizing that our production chunk should be broken out into production and also preventative maintenance, because I think those are things we let build up. And then we go like, oh no, our soft draws are destroyed. Definitely didn't just happen yesterday. Yeah, that's been my morning. And so I think what I hope to start to see is what things are falling behind, and then those represent an opportunity to break off another role in the business, I think.
How are you going to surface that? How are you going to surface the information of what's falling behind?
Because we dump a lot of projects in each lane. We just don't make them active, right? It's like a queue. So we have this huge queue of products to release. Yeah. And then we have these different queues. And another tidbit I got from Ken is he said, I think I might have mentioned this last week, that the thing he thought he did best was helping people say no to new work. And so controlling the amount of work you release to the system is really critical. Yeah. And I think it is one of the things that makes running a business and operating in a small business, and actually operating in big businesses, most managers and most teams, I think, get really excited by new things. And it's like, oh man, how cool would it be if we made a video about this thing? I think that would do really well and drive business. It's like, okay, Devin, you do that. And you're like, okay, great. And then you leave forgetting that. And seemingly in that meeting, everyone forgot about the fact that everyone is completely maxed out already. So what are we stopping to do to then make this thing happen? Yeah. And so instead, this gives an outlet also for those things. And when we have those exciting ideas, there's a place for them to land, and there's a clear reason that they're not going to get done. And so I think it lets everyone be more focused on hey, you have something in your lane still, means you've been sinking time into it. That time, if we just abandon it now, is all waste to the business, right? We've paid for the labor, no benefit happens. Right. And so I think it's just made that way more clear, and we've actually gotten, the pace of execution has radically increased. That's amazing. It's a pretty cool, and every single person says this about a whipboard. Yeah. It's the pace of execution is going to go way up. And you're like, I don't understand why that would be, because I'm working my ass off already. So where's that time coming from? And it's I think where it's coming from is not starting a lot of projects. Yeah. It's finishing projects and not forgetting about stuff halfway through. And then you have another conversation 2 months later, and it's oh yeah, oh wait, didn't we do a bunch of stuff? Yes, but we didn't get it across the line. Anyway. Love it. So I guess in summary, I would say, like everything, making it perfect is definitely not the answer. And I think it's been a fun, I think lately I'm just really focused on making sure that the board reflects how I'm spending my day. The thing I'm currently struggling with is when people schedule meetings on my calendar that are just right in the middle of that time block. And I'm like, huh. So does that mean that? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
It seems like there's a There's a simple solution there.
Which is
You
block
don't-
it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I need a block that is meetings.
Probably.
Oh, that would be dismaying because it's going to be.
I mean, you're doing it anyway.
No, you're right. I should have a block that's meetings, and I'm just thinking about how many hours per day I should allocate for it. It's probably like 2, which is a bummer. Might be more.
I'm sorry.
It's really dumb. I mean, anyway.
I'm very sorry. You have my condolences.
Thank you. Yeah, I have one last little. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to... MES, is that what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, one last little point, and then we should probably wrap it up. So again, doing a bunch of market research into ARDA as it relates to competition.
Yeah.
And like what else is out there. Learning a lot of many
acronyms.
TLAs, three letter acronyms. Yeah. So there's MES systems, which are manufacturing execution systems, versus ERPs, which are enterprise resource planning. MES is more to do with sort of synchronizing the flow of materials and usage and processing on machines, and when and what machine is up and what machine needs maintenance, and getting all that scheduled and allocating labor to each operation and that kind of thing. So the line between MES and ERPs is, whatever, somewhere. I think it probably depends on the implementation. But what's really interesting about it is, as I've looked at most of the competition that is not Kanban based, it is an aspect that didn't really occur to me. So they're traditionally very expensive to implement, very time consuming to implement.
MES.
MES and ERPs.
Yeah.
Traditional ERP, or the big ERPs like SAP and Oracle, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue before it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
They're now trying to go down market with like, NetSuite. I just talked to a big manufacturer of goods who implemented NetSuite and are moving off of it because they're like, we're just not big enough. And like,
Interesting.
they're a pretty big company.
NetSuite is...
owned by Oracle, and
Oh.
it's sort of a stripped down version, I think. Anyway, so an MES system, it's something that's related to this, topic of lean, is that with all that cost of building out your structure in a database, there's theoretical upside and efficiency gains. I'm not sure how many people realize them necessarily. But there's also a tremendous amount of inertia. Now that you've documented exactly how you do the thing, if someone on the floor has a great idea for a new process, I would not be surprised if it's kind of like, we can't change it because that's how our digital side thinks about it. And like, that would be a major restructuring.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to keep it, which means that, and this is just generally true, I think, that as you codify systems, if the cost of that gets really high, it's going to have an adverse effect on improvements. So kind of a bit of a damper on improvements.
Unless you can somehow make it flexible as well.
Yeah. And so my thought about that is that it needs to be sort of, this is kind of that if you make a system that is built up of nodes and then the overall structure is emergent from those nodes and how they interact, then I think it is inherently flexible, because if you change a node and you change how it interacts, now you've changed the whole system, instead of this other process where a lot of things, it's sort of a top-down structure. Yeah. And then you have to remap everything. And so I think, I wonder how Toyota handles this kind of thing in their system, because they do have a ton of documentation. They have safety records that need to be kept, right? Like, there's a lot riding on everything. And then to be like, okay, well, let's change how it's done, right? Like, there's a lot of things that touches that all need to keep up.
Yeah. I wonder how much of the overarching structure stuff changes regularly.
Yeah, or how they keep them separate, or how they, I don't know. Anyway, that is all.
On that note, That is all.
Yeah. Thanks all so much for listening. You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and arta.cards on Instagram and on the internet, and the podcast at incremental CI on Instagram. Please drop us a line, email us. We love hearing feedback on the episodes, what it made you think about, what you're doing in your companies, etc. It's awesome to hear about.
And you can find me at lichen_MFG on Instagram and likenprecision.com on the internet. And we have a Patreon. Go check it out.